Hello, guys. Let's get that audio check done real quick. You know that people are going to be stacking up real fast in the next 10, 15 minutes. We should have over 1,000 people in the chat pretty quick. Got a special guest with me today. You guys know I've talked about him multiple times. You're very familiar with the work Forbidden Archaeology through myself and the times that we have had to illustrate points or pull information from the field. And one of the books that we pulled from for some of this data was Forbidden Archaeology. It's over 900 pages long. It is a book that I read cover to cover about 15 years ago. And since then, it led me into various discoveries on the plethora of topics that we talk about here in Archaix. So Mr. Michael Cremo is going to grace us with his presence. And I'm really excited to have him as a guest because it is a pioneering book. It has already sold hundreds of thousands of copies. So the sound check good? Excellent. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Oh, you can hear no matter how much I soundproof this studio, you can hear my dogs. If somebody's coming too close to the property, you can always hear my dogs. Who? Okay, just a second. Mr. Cremo, how you doing?
Pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing really good. Right now, I am the only one here. Somebody just drove up on my property. I need about 2 minutes. Why don't you introduce yourself to my community, and I will be right back.
Okay, I will say a few words to introduce myself.
Awesome.
I'm a researcher in human origins and antiquity. My ideas are inspired by the accounts of very ancient histories on this planet from different ancient wisdom traditions. In my case, in particular, the Vedic text of ancient India, which describe human populations existing on this planet millions of years ago. If you look in the modern textbooks, you won't find any evidence for that. But I decided to look beyond the textbooks, look into the original scientific reports published in the peer-reviewed scientific literature. And when I did that, I found numerous cases of discoveries of human bones, human artifacts, human footprints going back much further in time than modern science allows. Today's consensus among scientists is that the first humans like us appeared less than 300,000 years ago. But as I said, if you look into the actual history, you see that there have been many discoveries of evidence that contradict that. So my question would be, if this evidence is reported in the original scientific literature, why isn't it mentioned in today's textbooks? And that gets us into a phenomenon I call knowledge filtration that operates in the world of science.
Michael, we talk about knowledge filters a lot. We talk about practicing exclusions. We know the scientific world is guilty of deception by omission. Your book, Forbidden Archaeology, touched up a lot on this. You and Richard Thompson did a great job. But you also said something that rang true with me a long time ago. And that was the scientific world wins their debate by silence, because there is no debate. The more they ignore when people are asking the right questions, they just keep ignoring it. It just totally kills the debate.
Yeah, that is an interesting phenomenon. You know, the best way to deal with an uncomfortable set of facts is to, if you can, ignore them. But I found my book was, with Richard Thompson, Forbidden Archaeology, was such a challenge to them that they couldn't ignore it in their professional circles because it was so well documented. So they reviewed the book in many of their professional scientific journals. And of course, many of the reviews were totally dismissive, saying, like Richard Leakey, for example, he said, nobody would take this book seriously but a fool. And others said similar types of things. But some of the more open-minded, you could say, or intellectually honest
Mm-hmm.
scholars took a different approach. Not necessarily that they agreed with me on every point, but they would say things like, "This this is not the normal type of book that we review." But unlike many of the alternative style books that come across our desk, this is well written, well researched. It has to be taken seriously. So uh, this this work was something that they couldn't just ignore.
Well, ignoring it would, for them to have totally dismissed forbidden archaeology would be tantamount to dismissing all the peer-reviewed articles and books that you did cite in your bibliography. Well-established researchers who had already come out and said many of the things. All you did was put it all together. So to dismiss the book would also be to dismiss its sources, and they can't readily do that. So the book is a work of genius. There is no doubt.
Yeah. So, well, I'm not saying I'm a genius, but uh, if you take care to really document what you're trying to say, it becomes harder to ignore.
Well,
And the
I
next
agree.
stage is to dismiss it. But what I find is they usually don't deal with the actual facts of a particular case. Say if you have, as happened in Italy in the late 19th century, a geologist named Giuseppe Ragazzoni found anatomically modern human skeletal remains in a Pliocene formation. And he looked very carefully and he said they're not intrusive. That means they would be
Right.
between 2 million and 5 million years old. And rather than deal with the facts of the case, the critics would say things like, well, it could have been intrusive. It could have been a burial. It could have been a mistake. They raise a whole list of possibilities without showing that they actually apply, that they have any evidence that such things occurred in the specific case that we were dealing with. Professor Ragazzoni was a trained geologist, and he was very aware of this problem of intrusive burial, namely that somebody in fairly recent times, maybe in Roman times, somebody died, his comrades dug a grave, put the body down in the grave, covered it over, and that's why you think you found a human skeleton in some very ancient layer of rock.
Right.
But Ragazzoni was a professional geologist. He looked very carefully when he was taking the skeleton out of the ground. And he noted that above the skeleton, all the layers of deposits
They were
were
undisturbed.
unbroken, undisturbed, which kind of rules out that intrusive burial hypothesis.
So does the Calaveras skull. The Calaveras skull could not have been intrusive. I mean, look where it was found. I'm familiar with. I'm familiar that you already know that the mountains in California, like Sierra Nevadas and stuff, they're the inside the mountains are packed with evidence of human remains. I was going to ask you, how do you think they got there?
Uh, well, I think they got there because there was a human presence at the time those deposits were laid down. And we're not talking about just thin layers of soil. We're
Right.
talking about hundreds of feet of solid volcanic deposits, sealing these things off from the surface. Originally,
Whole cave systems became crypts, but they became tombs.
yeah. So these deposits, these ancient river gravel deposits that were originally deposited during the early Eocene period, 40 to 50 million years ago, uh, they were, as I said, sealed off from the surface by hundreds of feet of volcanic deposits that covered them in later times. And you're absolutely correct. There are hundreds of discoveries in those very ancient deposits of human bones, human artifacts like obsidian, spear points, stone mortars, and pestles. And you pointed out to me a little bit earlier that you've got a rack of very old books behind you, rare books.
Hmm.
And that's where some of this information resided. You know, there was a Professor Whitney, J.D. Whitney, who was the chief government geologist of California. He wrote a massive book about these discoveries in the California gold mines. It was published by
Wow.
Harvard University's Museum of Comparative Zoology in the year 1880. But we don't hear very much about these discoveries today because of the process of knowledge filtration. There were
Right.
scientists who just couldn't accept it because it contradicted the emerging theory of Darwinian evolution.
Now you're talking about all the auriferous gravel deposits that are also spread out around California. They have human artifacts in them too, like
Yeah,
eoliths or something.
yes, the auriferous means it's a fancy word for gold bearing.
Right.
So they're called the auriferous gravel deposits that date back to the early Eocene period. There were many discoveries, like at places like Table Mountain in Tuolumne County, but
Right.
also in Stanislaus County, Calaveras County, many of the counties in the Sierra Nevada region in Central California where the mining activities took place and these human bones and human artifacts were found.
So you hit on something that was very interesting that I share with my community. I really need to do a full video on everything that I have on this, but the knowledge filtration isn't just the scientific community. It's now become a part of the corporate phenomenon. And what I mean is we have now passed legislation that when we have oil and gas companies excavating with tractors and they're taking layers and layers out the ground to build all their projects. Sometimes they're boring wells. Sometimes they're strip mining, and they come across archaeological artifacts or human remains. It used to be where they would report these things. Now there's all kinds of financial incentives to just shut the hell up. Don't even say anything to anybody. It's going to shut down all operations. Government's going to come in. They may not even. It may take 2 or 3 years for archaeologists to finish. So now there's corporate and government reasons. It's monetary reasons, fiduciary, as to why a lot of the things that are still being found today are not even reported.
Yeah, and even if they are reported, they wind up, I mean, these are these archaeological impact laws that were passed, you mentioned,
Yeah.
starting a couple decades ago,
Right.
where, or maybe even a little bit earlier, 70s, 60s. And because of that, and actually, most archaeologists today aren't doing independent research. They're working in what's called rescue archaeology or that corporate archaeology. where they're employed by the companies who have to pay fees to the state or national government to carry out this legislatively mandated archaeological impact work. But there was a case in San Diego some years ago where a state highway was being built through San Diego, and they came upon some mastodon bones when they were doing the bulldozing for it. They came upon some mastodon bones with marks on them, cut marks on them, indicating human butchering activity. And they also found stone tools capable of making the marks on those mastodon bones. So they did some dating of the bones using the uranium series method, and they got an age of over 300,000 years for the marks, the cut marks on the bones and the stone tools that were used to make them. Now, that is pretty revolutionary because the standard consensus among scientists today, archaeologists, is that the human presence in North America dates back only to maybe 20,000, maximum 25,000 years. So to have evidence that humans were present over 300,000 years ago is pretty amazing. But that report wasn't published, actually. It just went into the files of Caltrans, the California Transportation Agency,
Right.
which oversees the program. But somehow or other, somebody leaked it to Virginia Steen McIntyre, who was a geologist that I know, and she turned it over to me, and I wrote about it. Now, years later, in more recent years, just a couple of years ago, they finally did announce that discovery. They published it in the scientific world. They got the age down to about 100,000 years. So they weren't going to publish the original age of 300,000 years. But even 100,000 years is pretty revolutionary.
Well, I would love to be in the room. I would love to listen to those scientists and just be there and listen to them. And I want to know exactly how they shaved 200,000 years off the date of these finds. I would love to see that rationalization. I want to hear it because I'm a critic. Michael, of relative dating models, because I've read the research of Paul LaViolette, theoretical physicist, and he has shown conclusively that our atmosphere has been bathed in gamma bursts, gamma radiation saturation periodically, and he provides the dates. And we have like 14 of those saturations just in the last 7,000 years. And each one of those would have completely altered the total isotopic breakdown of parent elements into daughter elements, and it would have accelerated that breakdown for that period of the gamma saturation. So I just, when I hear these hundreds of thousands of years, I know they can be abbreviated. They're too long. It's too far back.
Yeah. Well, the thing about dating methods is, I have certain studies that I've done in the ancient Sanskrit writings of India, which, quite apart from modern dating methods, indicate to me that there's been a very long human presence on this earth. But when I go out to speak at universities and scientific conferences, I have to have some kind of framework for the discussion.
Right. Absolutely.
So what I say is to the scientists and the academics and the people who follow them, so according to methods you consider reliable, this bone or formation was dated at being so and so many thousand years old. So I know there are people who support a shorter age for the whole Earth, and I think that is a very legitimate way to approach things. To argue for it on the basis of considerations like Paul Violette does in the case that you mentioned, or they could.
Well, don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. He's not advocating that the world is 6,000 years old. No, he's just showing that these gamma ray bursts fit within that period. But he's got gamma ray burst fluctuations going back 25,000 years. He said there's just been a real high concentration in the last 6,000 years. But yeah, he's a scientist, and he actually uses several different types like potassium argon. What is it? Was it radiomagnetic dating? He he's very familiar with those systems. I was just mentioning that the relative dating methods is the problem is what we have to assume. We have to make the assumption that the isotopic breakdown is going to be stable in order to get the dates we get. But it's the instabilities. It is the changes in the weather, changes in the ion field. It is the changes in the mesosphere. It's different changes that we now find from other scientists actually affect isotopic breakdown from parent elements to daughter elements. So no one's really done a study yet. So we're kind of in limbo right now. Where no one's really kind of done a study yet to see how much is going to be shaved off of some of these real long dates. So you don't know. I'm not being dismissive of it. In the Archaix model, we only go by the historical record. Everything else is interesting. Well, these things are interesting, talking about these human artifacts found at 60-foot depth. And like in your book, the Nampa figurine, what was that? Wasn't that 600 feet under Idaho? The little human figurine that was found?
I think it was over 1,000 feet in a well boring.
Yeah, Nampa, well boring in Nampa, Idaho. So there's all kinds of
Idaho.
cases like that we have for extreme antiquity. In Archaix, we kind of focus on the historical record because we're all about the books. But we are aware that this is a cyclical experience. Cyclical history means this world's been destroyed multiple times, and humans were here for every single one of those destructions.
Absolutely, that lines up pretty much with what I say. I once presented a paper at a meeting of the World Archaeological Congress, which is a meeting that's held every 4 years of over 1,000 or a couple thousand professional archaeologists. And I talked about the very thing that you were mentioning, that you've got cyclical time concepts in the world's cultures, and you've got linear time concepts. And sometimes what happens is because of their commitment to a linear concept of time, they interpret the evidence in such a way that fits that assumption, which basically means that you start out with the simplest life forms and they gradually become more complex. And that sense of time arises out of Judeo-Christian cosmology.
Absolutely. I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan. I gotta say it. I have to be disrespectful, and I have to interject. Michael Cremo, I'm not a fan of Judeo-Christianity.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. Modern scientists claim not to be a fan either, but if you carefully look at their actual commitments, they pretty much line up in this sense that, say, according to a biblical account, there's a creation event. And in that creation, in terms of the living things, first come the plants, then come the animals.
Right.
Finally come Adam and Eve, human beings. They're in a fallen condition. They have to be delivered. So there's a Messiah or a Savior, and then there's a last judgment, and the whole thing finishes. Now, if you take the modern scientific account, it winds up being pretty much the same, just taking God out of the picture.
Removes God from the equation. Yes, I believe in it. I believe in a creative event. I believe that this is a, yeah, 100. I'm not a Big Bang type of guy. I do believe in a creation, and I do believe in an oversoul. I do believe 100% that I'm a created being. I'm just not. I don't. I'm just no longer a part of the Judeo-Christian paradigm. There are many crossovers with many other religions, but Native American traditions believed in the Great Spirit. My belief would be, pretty similar to it. So speaking of creation, what is your explanation for the but we know what basement rock is. You know what granite is. You know what granite can become a rhyolite and diorite. But you're familiar with the controversy. How do you explain the radio halos that are still in the granite from the polonium? I know you've read some papers on this.
I have, and it's not my specific area of research, to get into all the, I'm familiar with a lot of the assumptions that are made about these radiometric dating methods based on the decay of radioactive elements into
Right.
daughter
Well,
elements.
the reports that I'm specifically referring to are the scientists that are baffled that the radio halos were trapped in the rock. It's like they only have a half-life of like a tenth of a second. So it's almost as if the granite, it's a creationist argument. So it's almost as if the granite basement rock was created in a nanosecond, or those radio halos would have never been trapped in the rock. So I find that really interesting. It is evidence of instant creation, and it's still inexplicable because no one has been able to explain how those radio halos are still in there. The halo would have blipped out.
Yeah. Well, I'll have to say that I'm not an expert on that topic. In my experience, and I think you're correct to say that evidence isn't necessarily to be tied to a particular worldview. The evidence is there, but just as a matter of practice, I have, in my experience, the polonium halos in the basement rock are reports about that are usually appearing in creationist, Christian creationist in particular literature.
Oh, I agree. That's where I read it. That's exactly where I read it. Matter
Now,
of fact,
I don't,
ICR.
I don't, I think, I've got I've had at least a pretty good relationship with that school of thought in this sense that we agree that God is responsible for our existence
I agree.
in this cosmos, that there is evidence for God's continuous involvement with this cosmos. If we look at the order and complexity of it, it's hard to explain by any other reason than that. And for a host of reasons, I find I have a lot in common that human beings have always existed in this cosmos, on this planet. As you were pointing out, and I agree with you, there have been vast cycles of creations and destruction that have taken place over vast periods of time. And humans have been present in all those different phases. So, now, when we get down to the actual number of solar years that these events took place in, we may have a disagreement.
Oh yeah, that's not even important. It's not even important for this discussion. But we do have things that just kind of jump out, such as like we have a huge anomaly with the Precambrian explosion. I mean, this is something that still hasn't been reconciled, and they just kind of like to sweep it up under the rug. And the only reason it's a problem, it may not be a problem for you, and it's certainly not a problem for me, but it is a problem for the uniformitarian, especially one trained in the principles of Charles Lyell or Charles Darwin, because here we have 2 or 3 times in the fossil record we have explosions of life, but no transitional forms, and they're still trying to find transitional forms, and they can't. So, well, my point is it seems like the fossil record, not the scientists and what they're saying, but it seems like the fossil record kind of agrees with the fact that there are periods of destruction and then periods of creation, and that creation is not gradual; it is very, very rapid.
Yeah, they came up with a theory to try to account for that.
Panspermia?
Punctuated equilibrium.
Punctuated equilibrium. I've talked about that too, yeah. As a matter of fact, punctuated equilibrium is mentioned in my intro video. When you go to my channel and you listen to my intro video, I talk about it then. Yeah, it's so what about Henrik Schliemann? I am of the opinion that he found something very interesting, but it wasn't Troy. What do you think?
Well, I mean, I've been to Berlin and to museums there where I've seen some of the artifacts that he recovered at the site he identified as Troy.
Priam's treasure.
Yeah, and then apparently some of it went to Russia when the Russians invaded Germany. They kind of went through the museums and took a lot of stuff and sent it to Moscow or Leningrad, St. Petersburg, as it's called now.
Yeah.
So, but I found it interesting that he took some inspiration from the accounts in the Greek literature. And I think that's important because I think these different wisdom sources can help scientists in their research. So I kind of appreciated the fact that he did that.
He did,
But
and that whole area was Ilium. So there could have been countless other structures there from that time period and in the early Greek, but actual Troy is what he claimed, and I'm having problems with it. I'm having problems. I've always thought that the whole Trojan Sea Peoples Federation era conflict that was going on, highly doubtful that. I mean, I may be wrong, but those Greek artifacts to me were not proof of a Troy. They were proof of Greek artifacts in that area.
Yeah. Why he identified it with Troy, I'm not exactly sure.
Troy's something else. It's this sensationalism we have with archaeology. I'm jaded, Michael. I'm very jaded with the scientific community. I'm not impressed. And the more I review, I find a lot of just tacit agreement among themselves not to talk about certain things. I don't like the fact that if something is true, then you don't need to fake artifacts. You don't need to invent relics that do not exist in order to promote your idea or your model of world history. And this is what they've been caught doing. And they haven't been caught once. They've been caught multiple times fabricating fossil evidence to push these Charles Lyell and Charles Darwin notions down our throat. I'm not cool. I can't remember the hominid. The main hominid that we found out later wasn't even human. It was pig bones. I can't remember which one that was. Was that Piltdown Man?
Well, Piltdown Man was something else. The pig bone one, I think it was a pig tooth.
Yeah, they had a pig tooth that they used a pig tooth to reconstruct a whole human skull. It's ridiculous.
Yes, they did that. That was something that happened in the United States, I think early in the 20th century. That is something that does go on. The Piltdown Man case was really interesting because in the early 20th century, there were competing ideas of evolution. Some were arguing that the skull, the human skull cap, came first. Before you have skulls with a high forehead and no big eyebrows. They had that came first, and then the jaw came later. So, anyways, somebody manufactured a jawbone that kind of fit one of these theories,
Yeah,
and it was used to support it. It was in the museums, it was in the textbooks for 50 years or more. And then scientists, when their theories changed, they decided they have to reveal that this fossil that they had used to justify their ideas for 50 years was a fake.
that's terrible.
And it had to have been someone who had access to those fossils and had a great deal of scientific knowledge in order to give them the characteristics they
Absolutely.
showed.
Absolutely. It was a professional scientist who created that forgery. It would have had to have been to create it
Yeah,
exactly as it was expected or theorized to be. That right there, that you would have to do that in order to promote, that you would have to do that because there's a dearth of evidence in what you're promoting. That's embarrassing. That's absolutely embarrassing. There's another large embarrassment in the scientific community today. You may not be familiar with this one, Michael. Um, for for about 40, 50 years, the scientific material from the 1950s up to about the late 1990s, dendrochronology was a big deal. Everybody cited all these books, encyclopedias. Everybody's talking about, well, we can accurately date all these things using dendrochronology. And then around 2005, 2006, this couple, they are analyzing all the dendrochronological records all around the world, and they're trying to find out. Well, I mean, they're trying to do a climate history, and there's too many anomalies. You can't figure out what's going on. And the biggest discovery that they made totally rewrites every encyclopedia, every scientific paper that used dendrochronology, counting tree rings. They come to find out that most species of trees grow 2 or 3 rings a year, not one ring. Rings have nothing to do with annual seasons. Rings have everything to do with wet seasons. And sometimes a real good wet season will be a big thick ring for that whole year, depending upon where that tree is located. Other times, 3 really good rainfalls will create 3 rings in a year, and none of this was considered in the 1940s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and early 90s when all these books were being published. And no one's going back to rewrite all this, to redate none of it. None of it. The new material, like you guys showed in Forbidden Archaeology, newer discoveries are not rewriting older textbooks and older. They're still going with the former mistakes.
yeah. One interesting thing about that is they used dendrochronology to calibrate their radiocarbon dating
I know.
methods. That, in other words, because there's some uncertainty about, there's, a, a radiocarbon date is usually given as, say, 5,000 years plus or minus.
Right.
So to nail it down more exactly, they would compare their radiocarbon date with dendrochronology, from the same period.
It's terrible.
So it wasn't just that dendrochronology method was off, it's that it affected how they interpreted radiocarbon dates.
And the
And
radiocarbon dates are so arbitrary is simply because the carbon isotopic breakdown, it's not stable. It's being shown more and more that weather changes the breakdown of these isotopes. Winter slows down the breakdown. Summer increases the breakdown. If our magnetosphere isn't protecting us from enough solar radiation, all isotopic breakdowns anywhere in that hemisphere are increased. So I'm not a fan of carbon-14 either, because carbon-14 isn't even really dating what's there. It's dating the surrounding material. So I don't know, man. I'm just, like I said, Michael, I'm jaded. I'm jaded by everything I find. That's why I'm strictly a chronologist. My area of expertise is not archaeology and all that, because I would not get along with my peers at all. So I stick to chronological records in books. That's my area of expertise. If books say it, I'm gonna tell my community about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a big fan of books. I'm not so much doing excavations out in the dirt. I'm doing my excavations are into the history of archaeology, which are based on its publications. And my whole methodology has been based on that. And actually, it was a big discovery for me to find out that there are so many books that document these things, from the early 20th century, the 19th century.
Absolutely.
Uh,
I have a library full of them, Michael. I have American antiquarians that go back to the 1800s. National Geographic used to be a good magazine. National Geographic in the 1800s and early 1900s used to have some phenomenal articles. Uh, uh, I have several different types of magazines that go back to the 1880s, and back then these knowledge filters weren't in place. I have gazettes that go back to the Civil War, and in those gazettes, they report everything. They report weather conditions, tornado hit this farm, somebody stole this cattle, oh, there's cattle rustling in this county over here. These gazettes are really interesting because they'll just throw in what was happening. And every once in a while, you'll find out that somebody was farming on their land, and their oxen and their whole wagon went underground, and they found an underground cavern. They went in there and they find all these artifacts and stuff. Just these publications from the 1800s. That was the golden era when nobody was censoring anything. People really weren't into fiction. People weren't into all the fantasy and fiction. If you want to go read fiction, everybody knew who Jules Verne was and Mark Twain. You can go to a store and they had a whole fiction section. But most people were reading the farmers' almanacs. Most people were reading the Life and the newspapers and these gazettes. And these gazettes were the backbone, especially of America. There's so many different types of gazettes in the 1800s, and they're all packed with just amazing data.
Yeah. I mean, the first thing I did when I started my research on forbidden archaeology was, I noticed that Charles Darwin wrote his book, The Origin of Species, in 1859.
Right.
And that inspired scientists to go out and start looking for beings intermediate between humans, modern humans, and ancient apes, because that was what they were most interested in, the origin of the human species. And they started looking everywhere for the missing link. But if you look at today's textbooks, you see they didn't find any missing link until 1890, around 1891 or 2, when the Dutch researcher Eugene Dubois found Pithecanthropus erectus in Java. And he found a thigh bone or femur that was human-like, and he found a skull cap with a low forehead, big bony eyebrow ridges that was a little primitive. And he put the two together, and he said, "This is our missing link. Finally, we found it after 30 years." And I was kind of suspicious. And I thought, how is it that they were searching for 30 years and there's no real discoveries mentioned until 1890? So I asked a research assistant to get me some archaeology textbooks from the 1860s, 1870s, and 1880s. And when we looked at those, we found there were many reports of scientists making huge discoveries, but they weren't of missing links. They were of evidence showing that humans like us existed in very ancient times. So, included among them were the California gold mine discoveries. So I began using those textbooks from the 1860s, 70s, and 80s to get back to the original scientific references. And that's when I started uncovering books like Dr. Whitney's The Auriferous Gravels of California, which contain numerous discoveries. And there were many other ones, like in Whitney's report, he mentioned, and similar discoveries have been made in Europe by Carlos Ribeiro in Portugal. So I'd look those up, and they would have a little footnote in it. And such scientist in France made similar discoveries. So what happened was when the Java man Pithecanthropus erectus discoveries were made and became accepted in the scientific world, they had their missing link, but it was in a formation 800,000 years old. So that meant anything human had to come after that. So then they had to decide, well, what are we going to do with all the evidence that's accumulated over the past 30 years that show a human presence far older than 800,000
Yeah, what are you going
years?
to do about all the human artifacts that have been found in Cambrian, in Devonian, in Jurassic, and Triassic? I mean, there's been artifacts found in almost every single layer of geology now.
That's you're absolutely right about that. Although the record does get sparser as you go further back in time. But yes, discoveries have been made in Precambrian formations.
It's
Yeah.
crazy. It tells me see, I interpret this information differently than some. Some people would want me to accept that that's evidence that humans were here, 500, 600 million years ago. I don't see it that way. I see that the Precambrian strata isn't near as old as what they say. Now, I'm not a creationist. I'm not in the sense that I'm trying to tell you the Earth is 6,000 years. No, I would be comfortable with 200, 250,000 years. But this whole idea of hundreds of millions of years and all that, there's some very how does a human artifact even survive that long? I mean, we have some really intriguing things that have been found. You showed them in Forbidden Archaeology. You remember the little artifact that was in the granite? It was in a granite block, and it looked like rectilinear inscription, like maybe even like a Stonehenge Hebrew type deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was an incredibly old strata, and I think that was in marble.
Yeah, that was in marble, which I think I don't remember the exact age of it, but marble was forming kind of in the Carboniferous period, going back. I mean, if you accept the modern dates that are attached to it.
Right. This is from Forbidden Archaeology right here. That's the artifact I'm talking about, found inscribed in marble in Carboniferous layer.
Yeah, that's what I thought it was. I've always been afraid of this, that somebody is going to come in with one of my books and say, on page 492, you said this about the age of that artifact.
Oh yeah.
Is that true? Yeah.
Well, you're only citing William Corliss, and what you don't know, Michael, is I have shared the source book project with my community. They're very familiar with. I have like 20 different books from the William Corliss collection. I have all his scientific reports. The William Corliss collection is amazing. It's like Forbidden Archaeology, but it's instead of putting the information, connecting the dots, William Cordes doesn't connect the dots like you and Richard Thompson did in Forbidden Archaeology. What William Cordes does is what you did right there. Just show what was found, who found it, geographical location, bibliographic citation, image of it, and gone, done. Just the facts. That's all. That's what William Cordes is known for. Just giving us the facts and let us form our own opinion.
Yeah. Well, in a sense, that's pretty much what we did, because we didn't really put an explanation in Forbidden Archaeology. We admitted,
right,
truthfully, that we were inspired to do this work, by our studies in the Vedic histories.
right,
Because that's a question people will ask: well, why are you doing this? But as far as the actual book itself, it presents the facts of the case, both sides,
right.
the skeptical arguments against, the arguments in favor, and leaves it up to the reader to make up their own mind about it.
Well, I'm glad you did provide the artifacts, because it did not escape my notice that my favorite part was right here: evidence for advanced culture in distant ages. This is my favorite part of your book, but it didn't escape my notice that it's the appendix, because you and Richard Thompson, you did a fantastic job, but I understand when I read this, it wasn't really to an audience of people like Jason. It was to the scientific community who needed to look at this material. So I get it why this was written the way it was. But to get to the parts I really enjoyed was toward the latter 200 pages. But the appendix is explosive, because you guys show all these artifacts, that tubing, underground tubing, and all. Man, it's just amazing. All these things that have been found at incredible depths. So yeah, I'm not being critical, but I am admitting with you that you guys were very conservative, and I understand why.
Yeah, and including the appendix, or including those types of artifacts in the appendix, we did that principally because the reports don't come primarily from the scientific literature, but more from newspapers and things like that. But what I often explain to people is, if this evidence for extreme human antiquity is really there in the layers of the earth, then here's what we should expect to see happening. We should expect to see scientists encountering this evidence and writing about it in their professional scientific literature. We should also predict that other types of people, other people, will be finding this evidence. Like you said, farmers, miners, other people who are digging into the earth, they may encounter it. And their reports may not turn up anywhere except in their private diaries or notes, or perhaps they would come to the attention of a newspaper editor or magazine editor who would include a report. And as far as the artifact itself goes, it wouldn't go into a museum collection, maybe on the mantle over the fireplace of the farmer or the miner who found it. So we should actually expect to see, not like putting those on a lower level in terms of their ultimate value. To me, the whole spectrum of reports is proof positive that these artifacts and bones really were discovered. But it's something I would predict you should expect to find.
Right. Yeah, no doubt. I'm all. So, how many, in your opinion, because I mean, no one really knows, how many times has the scientific community been caught or been implicated in the creation or fomenting of a forgery upon the public? And what I mean by forgery, I'm talking about even falsifying data, even falsifying information. Not just a hard artifact we find out later is a composite from many different things, or purely porcelain invention, something like that. I mean, in your opinion, they've been so desperate to show transitional forms. They've been so desperate to show that the Charles Lyell model is absolute gospel truth about each layer being, dated to certain periods. What's your opinion about how much deception is really out there that we may wait in the next 50 years we may uncover that, oh wow, they lied about that too?
Well, it depends upon what field of science you're looking at, because I mean, archaeology, although it does have its place in the popular mind, is not where all the money is in science, the big
Right,
money.
right.
Big money is in pharmaceuticals, molecular biology, artificial intelligence. That's where it's going now. But for the past few decades, the big money in science has been going to, biochemical, molecular biology work that's related to pharmaceuticals in the pharmaceutical industry. And it's become a big problem that they admit themselves that they've got a huge problem in scientists publishing studies in which data has been manufactured. I
Absolutely.
mean, you see it happening. In archaeology and history, it's a little more complicated. There have been instances of active suppression and things of that sort. We mentioned a couple of them, the Piltdown Man and some others. There have been cases where that's been demonstrated, but in some cases, I could point out that the California gold mine discoveries, there are specimens that were collected by Dr. Whitney in the 19th century that are still in the Museum of Anthropology at the University of California at Berkeley. They're not shown to the public. Now, you could say that's the result of a conspiracy in
Wow.
this sense, that scientists are hiding evidence that they have that they think, if the public knew about, would cause them to disbelieve in their theories.
Well,
That's one
isn't
possibility.
isn't well doesn't the Calaveras skull qualify for the auriferous deposit area of those California mountains? Because what didn't it have more cc's for brain capacity than the modern human skull?
It was a very big skull. And what happened with that was it was found by a miner in Calaveras County. And in his mind, he found it very deep inside, I think like over 100 feet,
Right.
down below the surface, covered by volcanic deposits. And the way it was dealt with in the scientific world, it was reported to the scientific world by Dr. Whitney, who accepted it as genuine. And the response of the scientific world was to label it a hoax. But the problem is that there were many different hoax stories, and they can't all be right, and maybe none of them are right. That's the way I look at it. There are these elaborate hoax stories that it was gotten from some Indian burial, and
Right.
as a prank, the miners were playing a trick on Dr. Whitney. But if you look at what Whitney's testimony was and his works, he said, I'm very aware of these hoax ideas. And usually when somebody like a miner is trying to pull a hoax on an archaeologist, he'll bring, and I'm not saying that this actually is a hoax, but his impression was that people would bring some stone with some elaborate text written on it,
Right.
or some gold artifact, something of that sort. He
Yeah,
said that,
Barry Fell had to deal with that. Barry Fell's area of expertise was epigraphic studies, and he had
right.
to he had to separate fact from fiction. All his life, people were trying to give him fake stuff.
Yeah. So he was kind of used to that. And he said, but the things that I'm talking about are just bones, uh, simple artifacts like stone mortars and pestles, not anything very grand. You know, this, miners, he argued, and other people who would bring things like this were not aware of all of these scientific considerations, the details of the theory of evolution, and things like that. So it became a bigger problem for him to accept. But the point I was going to make was in some cases, there is actual suppression of artifacts or attempts to dismiss them or things of that sort. In some cases, it's just a byproduct of the process of knowledge filtration. In other words, if somebody becomes a professional scientist, and I'm not, I'm an outsider to that system, and I can say anything I want.
Well, that's why you provide so much value. I mean, my community is very well aware as well. I'm not I do not have any academic credentials, and you and I are very similar in that vein. But it allows us to bypass the intensive compartmentalization of the sciences, where these people are trained not to look outside the box. They're trained not to look at the peer reviewed materials of other areas of science that could comport with their discoveries. They're just trained to look down that narrow window of whatever their area of expertise is.
Yeah, and the way, and they're part of a community, of experts, they would say. So how do you become an expert? Well, we, the experts, train them and let them know when they're an expert. In other words, the kind of self-perpetuating kind of clique
Right.
that, and and scientists will admit that what they're giving is not the absolute truth, that they're giving the consensus among people they regard as experts, using the theories they think are the best and the evidence that they think is reliable. So that's what you're getting.
Yeah.
And they'll admit that. But in terms of archaeology, like the archaeologists in the museum where they're not displaying Whitney's artifacts, he or she may not think that they are suppressing or hiding true evidence. They just think we're being responsible members of our profession. There's, yes, this is an interesting artifact. I'm sure if I went and talked about it with my colleague down the hall, he'd be able to tell me exactly what's wrong with it. And but the effect is just the same as if it were a conspiracy.
Right. Right.
In other words, we're not getting the whole set of facts.
So
That's
basically what you're conveying to me, what I'm gathering from this, and it's a very good point, is that on the outside looking in, sometimes we're a little too quick to claim that something is a conspiracy from the scientists when really they're being just ultra conservative.
Yeah, something like that. But the effect of it is just the same as if it were a conspiracy,
Yeah.
because they make these kinds of decisions. And yeah, there was a book, The Study of Scientific Revolutions, that was very important in the history and philosophy of science,
Right.
where, excuse me,
No, I'm agreeing with you.
yeah, that theoretical preconceptions can influence how scientists will treat evidence that comes before them. And, there was a very interesting psychological experiment that kind of shows this. In this experiment, which was a pretty simple one, the researchers took a deck of cards and they altered some of the cards. Like if you have a four of hearts, normally that would show red, four hearts,
Hmm.
but they changed some of the cards so that you had a four of spades, red spades, so they changed some of the cards in the deck, and they would show the cards one after another to a subject, and the subject would have to identify it, like king of spades, queen of diamonds. And they come to one of the anomalous cards, and, like the four of spades that was colored red, and they'd go four of hearts.
Hmm.
Nobody, practically nobody would say, hey, there's something different about that. So the idea is that people tend to see what they expect to see, based on their training or previous experience. And this, it was Thomas Kuhn who wrote this book, Structure of Scientific Revolutions. He said the same thing goes on in science. Evidence can be staring scientists right in the face, and they don't see it for what it is. They see it in terms of their uh, worldview, their theoretical preconceptions.
Right. Right.
So,
It is.
so
It is dangerous. It's very dangerous. My own community is very familiar with my own story. Being a Christian for 40 years of my life, going to church 5 times a week. I am the child of a church administrator in the Southern Baptist Church, and that was my life. And I studied that Bible back and forward. And I admitted to my community that for a good 10 years of my deepest studies into the history of the world, into comparative religion, and into comparative mythology, into ancient chronological and calendrical systems. My views were tainted, Michael. They were tainted because everything, all information I processed was through a Judeo-Christian lens. Everything. I had to literally reread. I spent years rereading many of the books that I had read priorly, and I extracted even greater amounts of information from those texts and from those books. Once I had divorced myself from like you said, all preconceptions. Once I just let everything go and I just accepted data for data, I started learning.
yeah, once I was speaking to an audience at a university. It's called the Free University in Amsterdam, one of the big universities there. And I mean, free in the sense of freedom of thought. So my audience was graduate students of archaeology, geology, and paleontology. And I explained to them they should be aware of the entire data set that's relevant to their field of study.
That's right.
And I'll leave it up to you, I said, to divide that data set up into different parts. This is useful. This is credible. This seems pretty far out. Doesn't fit with anything now. But keep the entire data set in view, because in the light of future discoveries, something that doesn't make sense today and doesn't seem to fit may fit at that time. So, the evidence that doesn't fit the dominant consensus at any particular time, it shouldn't be cast into oblivion. Should just say, okay, we'll keep it in mind, but it's not very useful to us at the present moment. So I think that's an important message for people who are approaching this on a factual basis.
I get it. I understand. Equally important is I get what you're saying, that we shouldn't denigrate a theory simply because there's a dearth of facts. If the theory does answer for what we have found, then we can continue to maintain that theory as long as we don't have an opposing set of facts that overturns all that. I get that. My only issue is it seems like when it comes to the natural selection model, it seems like they have a theory that they wanted to hold out until they got the facts. And when the facts never came, they just started manufacturing evidence.
Yeah, I think there's an element to that. And I've seen that exact scenario expressed in the professional scientific literature on philosophy and history of science.
Right.
I've seen that exact thing, that sometimes a beginning theory has to be.
Have
What is that?
you ever read this book, Michael?
Which is it?
It's called A Chronology of Geological Thinking from Antiquity to 1899. Susan Thompson went through libraries all over the world, and she put together a chronology that goes back thousands of years of scientific discoveries. Her bibliography is fantastic, but she goes back 4,000 years and shows what scientists 4,000 years, 3,000, 2,000, 1,000 years, in the last 500 years, all the geological beliefs and the evidence that they use. This book is amazing. And if you want to, after the video, I will gift this to you. And I think you would absolutely love to read all the amazing discoveries and things that we've made as a human family for thousands of years. It's all in chronological order from ancient times all the way to present. I actually did a video on this on YouTube, and it's about a 3-hour long video where I went through this book for my community. But you're more than welcome to have this book if you want to. If you want it, I'll mail it to you. But I think for some like evening leisure reading, I think you would have a blast reading this book. It's fantastic.
Okay.
It's a good complement to Forbidden Archaeology, no doubt.
All right, I'll accept your kind gift.
It's a good book.
So, yeah. So, yeah, that scenario that you outlined, where sometimes a scientific theory just kind of getting off the ground has to rely on something other than the evidence until they get a sufficient amount of it. That does happen in some cases, like in the discussions that happened around the time of Galileo. They had the proposal whether the solar system is geocentric or
Right.
going around the sun. So that idea became prominent, but it wasn't until later centuries that became more established on the basis.
Did we lose Mr. Cremo? Don't know what happened. Yeah, his signal was getting weak. Seemed to freeze on me a couple of times. Lacey. Oh no. No, I said I had to get me one earlier, Lacey. You said no, you're going to be good. I wasn't talking about you. I wasn't talking about any of my moderators. My moderators are fantastic. Yeah, I'm talking about that dude told me to be quiet and let him talk. So I wasn't even interrupting. So yeah, he's not going to be able to say that again. Mr. Cremo, if you are still listening to the broadcast, you can just use that link to come right back in. Let me see. Yeah. Hello, Jahara. See, the one tucks are here. Y'all can hear my phone.
Hello.
Hey, John, do me a favor and contact my guest and tell him he can just use that same link and come right back in.
Okay.
His signal broke.
Oh, okay.
Appreciate it.
Right now.
Take care of that. Yeah, so I'm going to share while we're waiting on him to come back in. I'm going to share the book. I did not know that he had. You know what? Here's select a tab to share. Okay. Well, let me open a tab. Somebody told me I don't have to share my whole screen. Just share a tab. So let's do that. I want to show you his new book. Oh man, there we go. Okay, so yeah, I want to show you the new book. So select a tab. How do you select a tab? So I just want a window. Oh, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that with me. I shared my whole screen the other day. I didn't even know I could do this. I did not know I could do this in StreamYard. Awesome. Here's his new book, Extreme Human Antiquity, Further Investigations into Forbidden Archeology. Michael Cremo. Michael Cremo, who got the entire world's scientific attention. Yeah, they tried to dismiss him at first, and then other scientists who actually entertained it had to report to the other ones and say, hey, this man is citing all the peer-reviewed material. He's going through all this. We may need to look. Ended up selling over 300,000 copies. My copy of Forbidden Archaeology is the first printing. The first printing was 5,000 copies. I know. This is this is the first printing right here. Matter of fact, you guys know I might be from Texas. I'm not from the show me state, but you guys know I'm not going to tell you. I'm going to show you. This is first printing. 5,000 copies, first printing. But I think that's where it was. First printing. Oh, there it is, 1993, right where my finger is. I can't even see the screen because my camera. Hold on, I'm way over here. Where's my finger at? All right. Oh, this is so weird trying to hold a book up to my camera. What is going on? Why is everything so backwards? Right where my finger is says first printing. I don't understand why my camera gets blurry like that. All right, take my word for it. Anyway, this is his book. Oh, he's back in the studio. So let me exit out here. Let me get him back in here. I'm showing off your book right now, Michael.
Okay. Yeah. Somehow or other, I got bumped off.
It happens. It happens. It's I'm showing your book right now. I didn't even know it existed till this morning, and I thought Forbidden Archaeology was the sum of your work. Then I found out about Extreme Human Antiquity, so I got on Amazon and I ordered a copy. My community already knows. Michael, my community already knows that I will do a video on this book. That's what I do. I read books and I do videos on them.
Oh, great. So, there's something else. If, next year, June 21st to June 14th, June 14th to the June 21st, I'm going to be in Bosnia at the Bosnian Pyramid. conference and tour that's being organized by Sam Osmanagich, who is the researcher who discovered that place. So if any of the listeners are going to be in that area next year around the solstice time, I'd be pleased to meet with them.
Awesome. Awesome. Where in the States are you?
I'm in Los Angeles.
Oh, okay. I might pay you a visit. About twice a year, I go to San Diego to go visit my publisher. I don't know if you know Paul Tice of the Book Tree. I know you're publishing. The publishing company that published Forbidden Archeology used to be in San Diego. Back to Bhaktivedanta?
Bhaktivedanta
Back to okay.
Institute.
Yeah, don't get me to trying to pronounce that.
Yeah. So that's fine. But yeah, thanks for introducing your audience to the new book. The subtitle of it is Further Investigations into Forbidden Archaeology, because people would always ask me, have there been any other discoveries that have come to your attention since Forbidden Archaeology was published? So this is my answer to that request.
That's awesome.
And it's arranged according to the geological ages of the discoveries, starting from the ones that are close.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna have a field day with that. So you went by Charles Lyell's. You basically went by the elements of geology, and you reported what artifacts were found in each layer.
According to their, as I said, as a framework for discussion, I have to start somewhere. I may have a different idea of what the time scales are, but since this is the dominant one in the world today, I kind of use it as the basic framework.
Wow,
But
I'm impressed.
you can, it's possible to dispute the ages, and I do that in some places. But
it's amazing. I'm a fan. I'm a fan because I haven't told you this about me, but I have well over a dozen books published. I've written over 27, 28 books, but my publisher keeps reformatting them, and one of them was like 1,055 pages. He turned that into 4 books, and one of them was only 70 pages, and he ended up wanting me to write a 300-page book out of that. So it's hard to keep up with how many when the manuscripts change dimensions and sizes and content. But still, the reason I'm mentioning this is because I understand what it takes to write a book, especially one that requires extensive bibliographies. It is not easy, and you got to cross all your T's, you got to dot all your I's, because you never know what kind of criticism is going to come your way when people want to attack a thesis, or when people want to go through your material. So I get it, man. It's a prodigious amount of energy to put together a book like this.
It is. But even so, you're more prolific than I am.
Well, I don't write. I write on totally different topics. I write the information that I divulge to the public is much easier to find than what you're doing. And I've gone through thousands of historical texts and records, and I look for all the chrono markers. Anytime there's any type of statement in old texts that talk about how many years an event was from something else, and then I take these. This is the type of, it's textual archaeology. I take that statement and then I'll put it on a timeline. Well, okay, here it goes. And then after I've got thousands of these, and I put this, I publish a book. And one of my newest books is Chronicon. And I'm going through 7,344 years of history according to the chronological records, the monuments, the date stelae, the regnal lists, and old chronologers from books from 2,000 years ago all the way up till 400 years ago, Archbishop James Ussher, when he didn't make mistakes. So this is what I do. And that information is much easier to find because we still have many books from the 1600s, 1700s, 1800s, and in the 20th century that cover these topics. What you're putting together is so much more difficult. To me, it would be difficult because you got to find all these anomalous discoveries to even be able to put a thesis together.
Yeah, it is. But everybody's got to do something.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah,
I get it.
this is just what attracts me. Yeah, I like all aspects of the work, whether it's researching, writing, getting involved in the publication and distribution of it, the going out and representing it, either in the media or in person at different events. So to me, it's all fascinating.
Yeah, well, next time I'm in San Diego, I may hit you up for lunch. Lunch is on me. LA is not far. LA. As a matter of fact, we go through LA anyway. Go through San.
Go through. I'm not above taking the train down to San Diego.
I like San Diego, but I only like it for short periods of time. Then I got to go. I drive a huge van, and San Diego just, yeah. All the times I've been to San Diego 4 times now, it's always in my van, they didn't build San Diego for large vehicles. It's terrible.
Yeah.
So this has been great. Michael, this has been awesome. And like I said, you will see if you log back into my YouTube channel here in the next few weeks. It doesn't take me but about 2 days to go through a really good book, and it takes me about another 2 days to collate all the data, get my show notes together. But I will definitely do a video on extreme human antiquity, and because I do book reviews. I have a section here in Archaix called Book Monkey, and that's what we do. We review really good books, and we go through them and show all the data. So I'm pretty excited about that. I'm excited about getting that in the mail. And when I do that, I'll probably show my community some more stuff from Forbidden Archaeology as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. My pleasure. My pleasure. So I have one last question. One last question for you.
Okay.
I wrote this one down. Let me find this real quick. I got this question. I was curious about this. Okay. So, Mr. Cremo, can you think of any examples of geological features where fossils are expected to be found, but scientists are baffled because they're absent?
Yes. Like sometimes scientists comment about the lack of evidence for anatomically modern humans going very far back in time. But I point out to them that chimpanzees are a case where for over 200 years, scientists were unable to find a single fossil of a chimpanzee. They think the chimpanzee line split off from the line that became humans.
Right.
About 6 or 7 million years ago, maybe a little more. And I thought that was interesting that, most people aren't aware of the weakness of the fossil record, actually. So for hundreds of years, they didn't find a single fossil. Maybe a few years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, they found 1 or 2 fossils that they considered to be chimpanzee. But millions of chimpanzees have existed, and they don't find any evidence for them.
Man, it's a really good point. And I don't know. I don't know why, because we have so many fossil turtles and frogs and turtle snake. We have fossil snakes. You know, there's fossil fish all over the world, fossil jellyfish, sponges. We have fossil corals, bivalves, fossil. These fossils are all over the world. But you know what? I don't think I've ever seen a fossil monkey, ever.
Yeah. And there could be several reasons for that. One is nobody's looking for them. You know, that's one thing. Second reason is knowledge filtration, that even if they find something, they may not believe it and they'll just keep it out of sight.
Right.
Third
But why?
reason is differential rates of fossilization. You know, you mentioned corals and mollusks and things like that with hard shells. Those tend to fossilize more easily. The second, I mean, not second, but another factor is the nature of the environment. One reason is that certain environments are better for fossilization because, you know, like if you're in a swampy area or an area where there's stream beds where objects can be covered over very rapidly by sediments, sealed off from uh, contact with oxygen. And because any bone will oxidize, it'll rot if it's exposed to oxygen. So if you have a stream bed or a lake bed where something can be covered over by clay and it hardens and protects the object, then it may be fossilized. Another factor is the number of specimens available for fossilization. You know, like as far as scientific understanding is concerned, humans are not a very numerous species when compared to the number of clam shells or the number of fish or number of
That is
other
true.
types.
That is true. But to play devil's advocate, if we have multiple geological layers and there's fossils in all of them, you would think by now we would have found fossil hominids of varying degrees on their way to being a spider monkey, a regular monkey, a chimpanzee. I mean, didn't they find fossil Gigantopithecus? Well, wasn't that originally thought to be like a gorilla or something, Gigantopithecus, and then some type of a large, very humanoid. I mean, even thicker and bigger than Neanderthal. I can't remember what I read about Gigantopithecus.
Yeah, well, that's something from Southeast Asia, southern China, Indochina, Indonesia, places like that. They have discovered fossils of very large size hominins. So yeah, my point has always been that if you actually look at all the evidence and not just the carefully selected uh, fraction of the evidence that you see in today's textbooks, the pattern that emerges is not one of evolution, of going from monkey to ape man to
Right.
human beings. It's not like that. It's if you look at all the evidence, what you get is a picture of coexistence, of just like today on this planet. Humans coexist with various uh, human-like, apes, monkeys, things like that.
I mean,
And
even within the human realm, we have humans still living in the Neolithic today, and we have sub-Saharan humans right today that without any outside contact, they're still living almost Neolithic lives compared to humans today that are technologically advanced and enjoying all the creature comforts. So there's even wide variety in the human family right now.
Yeah, wide varieties of culture. There's also, and I talk about this in first chapter of Extreme Human Antiquity, is that the skeletal markers that scientists use to differentiate one species from another, for example, to separate the Neanderthals from the anatomically modern human.
Oh man, what happened? Hold on. I got the wrong. Sorry about that. I'm trying to remove your book. Go on, Michael.
Oh, okay. So that the markers that anthropologists and archaeologists use to differentiate, say, Neanderthals and anatomically modern humans are features like a brow ridge that goes either straight across the lower part of the forehead, under which you have the eyes, or you have two kind of curved, separate brow ridges, bony brow ridges. That they considered symptomatic of the Neanderthal skull. Most modern humans, they have kind of like a flat skull from their eyebrows up to their foreheads. But there are living populations of humans, like in Fuego de Terra, the very southernmost part of South America. There are humans there who have those features, either a bony, straight brow ridge or two curved, bony brow ridges above the eye sockets. Now, they don't want to call them a separate species.
Right.
That would be, not a very appropriate thing to do. But it kind of expands. Another way to approach it is, well, there's actually a kind of a convergence of Neanderthals and anatomically modern humans. Actually, about 4 to 5% of our genome, scientists say, comes from the Neanderthals.
That's sad. That's sad too, because I've read the report too. There's some really harrowing reports about the bone middens that have been found in Neanderthal camps where they were eating Cro-Magnon, and the hunter camps. There's an overlap between Cro-Magnon and Neanderthal, and it looked like in that overlap period, the Cro-Magnon, they were dinner. The knife marks on the bones and the charred bones, and it looks like in some areas of the world, at the very end of the Neanderthal period, yeah, they were having Cro-Magnon for dinner.
Yeah.
You've ever seen any of that material?
I've heard of evidence for cannibalism from those periods, because they find human bones with cut marks on them that match the cut marks that would be found on other types of animals that humans butchered. Yeah, so I have heard of things like that.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting stuff. So when are you going to be in Bajna again?
Next June.
June?
From the 14th to the 21st of June. It's not going to be just me there. There'll be other speakers as well from the alternative history type of field.
That's
so awesome. It should be an interesting event.
Do you know who are some of the names that are going to be speaking there? Do you know offhand?
Well, I have not right offhand. I'd have to look at. I just got this invitation a little while back, but let's see.
I need to start accepting more invitations. I get invitations to do all kinds of things. I don't know, man. I'm just kind of doing my own thing. I've told a lot of people no on, but I need to start accepting them just to get out there.
Well, yeah, it depends upon. I mean, it's like anything, like artwork. You could say, "Well, I'm doing it for myself," but well, like I do, I think. I mean, I would do this research just for myself.
Absolutely,
You
you gotta
know?
love what you do.
But
Absolutely.
if I think there's some value, some possible value in it that would help other people who have questions about our origins and identity, then I figure, well, I should take advantage of any opportunity I get to share it. Just like your invitation to speak on this podcast.
Mhm.
You know, I I kind of welcome the opportunity to put my ideas before an audience that's potentially at least a little bit receptive toward it. You know, it'd be interesting to live in a time when one's personal convictions about these things were widely accepted by all the elite circles and society. But sometimes we
Right.
don't have that luxury,
Yeah.
you could say.
Well, I listen. Michael. I'm saying this with tongue in cheek. My community knows me well. I'm very adversarial. Yeah, I do not, I actually thrive and enjoy living in a world where many of my ideas are either revolutionary or not quite accepted by the mainstream yet. And so I have resistance, and I'm very good with resistance. If everybody agreed with me, I would just fall apart. There'd be no reason for me to do what I do.
Well, I agree with you in that sense that if I'm going to call my book Forbidden
Yeah,
Archaeology,
that's right.
I
That's
should
right.
expect some opposition. Yeah, if I didn't get forbidden every once in a while, I would begin to ask, what are
That's
you
right.
doing wrong? So I get that point of view also. And there are just stories I could tell about opposition.
I
In
believe
a
it.
sense, I kind of thrive on it like you do.
So, so I'm curious about those names. Do you have that brochure with you? Do you have that list
Oh,
with you?
let me find it.
While you're looking at that, I think it was Charlie Tree, may have been somebody else. Somebody in my comment section wants to know. They say, "Man, for your age, you look fantastic," and they were wondering if you are on a special diet. Is there a special regimen or a diet that you follow?
Well, I'm 77 years old, and I feel it sometimes, but I've been a vegetarian for about 50 years.
Wow,
So I guess that kind of qualifies as a special diet, but like
I find it
uh,
interesting that you have this background in Vedic studies, and you know, and I don't want to get into it in this video. It's not the subject matter. Well, we've talked a lot about the Vedantas and the Puranic writings, the Mahabharata, the Bhagavad Gita, the Ramayana. These are things in chronographical materials. They add value. But this week, Michael, no one planned this because we didn't know what date you wanted. We didn't know what date they wanted. But this week, I have you now. In 2 days from now, I have Alpha Vedic as my guest. Do you know Mike and Barry? They run a
uh,
pod. They run a podcast called Alpha Vedic.
I didn't know that.
Well, they'll be here. They'll be a guest in 2 days here on Archaix. So I had two Vedic. I have two Vedic guests in the same week. What a coincidence! Nobody even planned this. I know
Yeah,
my community knows who they are. I see Dak correcting my pronunciation of bear. You guys better get off my southeast Texas pronunciations. That's not that important if you can't find it. I was just wondering who the speakers were.
Yeah, I'm not really so good at multitasking on
That's all right.
the computer.
Nobody. What is the name of the get together, the convention?
It's called. I should really find it for you.
Yeah, don't worry about it. It's no big deal. I can find it fast. Convention in Bosnia.
Yeah, 2026 Bosnia tour. And Pyramid of the Sun. I think it's called.
What month is it? June?
June 14th to 21st.
That's all I need. I'll find it and I'll see who all the speakers are. Who knows? I already got Big John looking in on a bunch of stuff on passports and all. I'm thinking about doing a cruise. But I got real good friends out Alaska way and Hawaii way. We're trying to put something together right now. Let's see. That's no big deal. Well, I'll look it up later. Look that up later.
Yeah, let's see.
Terry, what are you doing eating bacon and eggs this late in the day? What's going on, Terry? Where are you at? Oh, Bosnian Pyramid. That Jasmine says it's the Bosnian Pyramid Summer Solstice Conference tour and festival. Oh yeah, I can already tell. There's going to be some of my professional adversaries are going to be there. I can already tell.
Oh yeah, who's your adversaries?
Oh, I've been trying to get them to debate. I've got really good data sets, and I'm trying to get Graham Hancock, Randall Carlson, Jimmy Corsetti, Matt LaCroix. Now this new guy, Michael Button. I'm trying to get them to debate. It's we have some real serious chronological issues to discuss because they make a huge impact on all subsequent and ancillary research these men put out. So Graham Hancock's the main one, but Billy Carson too. That's the whole list. That's the whole list right there. And I know Billy Carson's going to be there. I'm pretty sure the other ones are too. Oh, it's nothing. It's nothing personal. It's nothing personal at all. It's just that I've been in publishing for 20 years, and I only recently started 5.5, 6 years ago my YouTube channel. I got really popular because of the type of content that I put out, and also force of personality. I'm not scared to call somebody out on their BS, but it's I'm also well known for giving credit where it's due, because my criticisms of other content creators are because they don't cite their materials, or they stole their research and are not telling their communities where they got that original material from. And that's one thing I do, is I chase bibliographies. Like you described to my community about an hour ago how you were reading different reports, and in the fine print you would see, oh, okay, well, there's more information here that this scientist has cited in his bibliographic notes in microprint. So you would go find that one, you go read it, and this is how you guys put our Forbidden Archaeology together. Well, it's the exact same thing I do. And when I'm going through all these other YouTubers' material, and I'm like, wow, you just put out a 2-hour presentation. You got 300,000 subscribers. You just put out a 2.5-hour presentation on a subject matter for which you have no expertise whatsoever, but you cited all this guy's research, but you never once mentioned him. So this is the type of stuff, like I told you, I'm adversarial, but I'm adversarial for a cause, because all that grifting and all that lifting other people's material and not giving them credit where credit is due, that's my pet peeve. And I don't let people make it. I call them out for it. And I show people where Graham Hancock got his material, and he doesn't cite those authors. I show where Billy Carson gets his material, but he's not telling you the whole truth. bibliographies are my things. My published books is like Forbidden Archeology. When you open up one of my published books, you're going to be overwhelmed with bibliographic citations. I'm going to show you, because it's fair as fair. If I'm going to lift material from another researcher's book, I'm going to make sure you know where it came from. This is the guy who said it. This is the original researcher, or this is where he got it. So there's a lot of people in the field who are presenting themselves as authorities for subject matter and topics they know nothing about, and the material is coming from other sources and they're not citing those sources.
Oh, do you mean like, say, if some researcher does, or say like myself, I do research and put together a bibliography and make a point. If somebody kind of took my bibliography and went themselves, use them in their work without mentioning that they first came in contact with the subject by reading my book and
Right.
seeing the bibliography in it. That's
right. I call that out all the time. My community will tell you quick. I've got over 1,000 videos on YouTube, and my videos aren't light. They're not. No, very few of them are like this, where I'm actually dialoguing with somebody. Most of my podcasts are on other people's channels, but the 1,000 or so over 1,000 videos I have on my channel are research videos, where I'm going deep into the text. I'm talking about all kinds of things, but I'm showing. I have a habit of showing people. I don't want to tell you something. I want to show it to you. So I show them the pages in these old books and what they're saying. But when it comes to a situation which you're describing right now, yes, I would definitely call somebody out if I had found out that, wait a minute, you got all that material from Michael Cremo. So when I read your material and I go through it, I say, wow, you don't even have a bibliography. How are you an expert on all these topics when you don't even have a bibliography, and that the subject matter is exactly what Michael Cremo put out? So I'm accused of having an eidetic memory by people, because I can cite chapter and verse and page number, and I can go through in and out text back and forth. I don't know if I do or not. I'm just very passionate. I love what I do, and I have no problem memorizing what I read. So I'm always just going on these freestyle presentations. What really got me popular from the very beginning, Michael, were van vlogs. It's because people realize, damn, this guy is giving historical dissertations, citing hundreds of dates and the relative what they mean, and even showing mathematical patterns in them. And I'm driving for 2 hours in a van. I'm not reading from a text. I'm not looking at a screen. I'm just looking through the windshield driving, and I'm giving history lessons. This is what got me popular. They're called van vlogs, and a lot of my earlier videos are all just me driving and talking about my studies and my theories and different good books that I've read. So you were invited to the channel because I'm a critic. I'm not a critic of you and your research. I am a critic of authors. Basically, I am a critic of the field, meaning if I invited you to my channel, then you met my standard. And I keep a very high standard, and my community knows this. It offends a lot of people that I haven't invited to my channel. It offends people that I've called out to debates, because my call outs are very public. I show the email to my community. So look, man, this guy, he's putting all this out. I'm calling him out to debate. Here's the email, so you guys know I'm not blowing smoke up your ass. This is legit. This is how it needs to be professionally done. And it's just like I told you, I am adversarial, but I'm adversarial not on a personal level. I'm with a cause, because I value the truth. And I understand that none of us possess it all. But there's a whole lot of people that are muddying the waters where they could actually be providing value, and they don't. They're stealing other people's value. So I call this out regularly. That's my little YouTube reputation.
Yeah, I've never really put anything up, myself. I just kind of do whatever comes my way in the way of invitations.
Right. Well, I mean, it's you got to love what you do. And me, I love chronology. And the problem is when somebody educates themselves on the last 4,800 years of chronological records that we have, once you really know what all these historical citations, there are a lot of pet theories out there that completely fall apart. So this is the value of Archaix. Archaix is about chronological systems, and what you do is kind of outside the purview. We're talking about things that go back hundreds of thousands of years through multiple epochs. Humans were here. There was cyclical destruction. I'm totally on board. This world has been destroyed and recreated over and over and over. And it's almost as if we're like immortal beings living through life sims, and it's transmigration of souls. And we've been living in different biospheres. Sometimes we have a high pressure environment. It creates these amazing changes in the human condition. Different types of humans are because of different types of biospheres that were either experimented with. Maybe humans were injected into this construct, and we're going through these cycles. And I have no problem with the cyclical history. I have no problem with long periods of time. It's just Archaix can only deal with my professional material can only deal with the chronological record, the things we actually have chrono markers for. Things like date stelae and temple inscriptions and regnal lists and actual chronologies that were published, centuries ago, and what they said and what they cited. This is what Archaix is about. It's a chronological analysis of the human experience, no matter what kind of world we were living in at whatever kind of epoch. This is what we do in Archaix. So yeah, I invited you to the channel. I told Big John, I said, man, we need to get this guy on the channel. We need to get him to come over here and talk to us, because he is a co-author of Forbidden Archaeology, and it's a paradigm shattering book. It's an amazing text, and I wanted to get him. I want him on my channel. So I'm glad you accepted the invitation.
Oh yeah, so am I.
Yeah, and after I do my review of your book and show my community all the value, I know it's going to provide value. I know it's going to be an awesome video. You're more than welcome to come back and talk about it. Hopefully you'll be introducing us to the idea of you thinking about writing a third book.
There are other books I've written. Human Devolution.
What? Hold on. Let me write this down. Human Devolution. All
right. Forbidden Archaeology's Impact.
Okay, isn't that the abbreviated, concise version of Forbidden Archaeology?
No, it is. People would ask me after the book came out, what has been the reaction of scientists, philosophers, other people, other alternative researchers? So to answer that question, I put together all of the reactions, all of the academic reviews that had come out at the time.
Yeah, what's the title on that? I need that too. What's the title on that?
Forbidden Archaeology's Impact.
Thank you. Got it.
And I think that's important, because you're talking about the back and forth with critics and debates. This was kind of like that. Somebody would review my book in an academic journal. I would respond to the review and, like point out whatever mistakes were in it or misrepresentations. And then I might get a response from the author of it or the editor of the journal. And, I just wanted to give people an answer to their question, what has the impact been? So they could judge for themselves.
That's a great idea for a book.
Yeah. And it actually, that book got some academic reviews on its own. But it's not just the academic side of it, it's alternative science reactions, religious reactions, ordinary folks kind of reactions.
Right.
And I wish more people would look at that book, but
they're going to. All I got to do is do a video on it.
Yeah. And then Human Devolution, Forbidden Archaeology's Impact, the abridged edition of Forbidden Archaeology.
I have that one too. It's it's about this thick. I've got
The
that one too.
hidden history of the human race. But the bigger book outsells the abridged version.
Yeah, I don't really like abridged versions of anything. I just get the whole thing.
Yeah, that's what most people do. If they're interested in it, they want to make sure they're not missing anything. And
Yeah,
then,
well, Forbidden Archaeology is not an easy read. It's not like a good fiction book that you're in love with the characters and all that. You're going to sit there and read all day. For me, Forbidden Archaeology was a work in progress. I read other books as I read. I could digest a couple chapters and I would put it away as I was reading other things. Then I would come back to it.
yeah, it's like a reference book.
Yes.
And then for easy reading, for a long time, for a few years, I was writing a column called The Forbidden Archaeologist for Atlantis Rising magazine. So for people who want an easy to read introduction to my work, I put together a collection of maybe 50 of those columns. And it came out under the title of The Forbidden Archaeologist. It's kind of short, like a
Is
couple
Atlantis
hundred
Rising
pages.
still around?
It's still, Atlantis Rising went out of the print business a few years ago.
Yeah, I used to read the magazine back when I read Nexus and Paranoia magazine. I used to read all three of them.
Yeah, I did articles for Nexus, and they invited me to speak at a couple of their conferences. And Atlantis Rising just exists in a digital form now.
Okay. It used to be a very good magazine. I remember.
I liked it. So I brought out 50 of those columns in a small book titled The Forbidden Archaeologist. That's me. So then I brought out a book called My Science, My Religion, in which I put the text of 24 papers that I've presented at major international scientific conferences dealing with archaeology, human origins, and so on. So that's not an easy reading book but for those who are interested in how I present these things in that context. It's not my only audience.
Okay.
It's one of the audiences that I deal with. I try to stay in touch with a lot of different kinds of audiences. So those are, and of course, there's Extreme Human Antiquity, which just stopped.
I've already got that one on the way. But now that I know about human devolution archaeology and forbidden archaeology impact, I'll be ordering those two tonight.
Okay.
One thing I'm going to do is collect books. I have all William Cordes collection. I've got. Are you familiar with oh man,
yeah, I've got Corliss's
what is his
book up
name?
here.
Jonathan Gray. Have you ever read Jonathan Gray? He's like a sensationalist, but he's got some good material.
I have spoken at the same conferences as Jonathan Gray. I met him.
I've got all his books. He's got like 7 books. I got them all in my library as well. They're he's isolated some. He's gone through a lot of the older materials like you have, and cited some of those 19th century and early 20th century discoveries. It's pretty interesting stuff.
Yeah.
He focuses on the coal deposits. He focuses on the fact that a lot of human artifacts have been found inside coal seams.
That's absolutely a fact.
Yeah, I like that.
And I think that's just the tip of the iceberg.
Wow, you
Yeah.
may be that might be. I think we just got our next video. If you're willing to come back in a couple of months, we can talk about coal seams because I got a lot to talk about on that.
Yeah, I think what happened though is that it became a very mechanized industry
Right?
when it was more hands-on. You know, when you had miners picking up blocks of coal and
Yeah. Well, they used to deliver it, Michael. They used to deliver it as a lump, and everybody, every homestead had their own little coal hammer, and they would knock the little pieces off because the stove holes were like this big, where they open up the stove, put the coal in there, and they're all so small. And all these artifacts were found when people were hammering their little pieces, chunks of coal off, and they would hit a silver bell, and it would be ornate, and they would put you know the one I'm talking about, that ornate silver bell. It was
yeah,
I
that
want
was
to
found
say
in
Idaho,
West Virginia.
Ohio or Idaho. There's so many of them: coins, necklaces, jewelry, all kinds of
Iron
charts.
pots,
Yeah,
iron
it
pots.
is so crazy. Everything that's been found in coal. Yeah, we could do that too. A couple months from now, if you want to come back, Michael, we can definitely just talk about coal deposits.
Sure.
I'd love that. Well, they would too. Absolutely. So, human devolution, forbidden archaeology, forbidden archaeology impact, and the book that I just ordered this morning, which is The Extreme Human Antiquity, Further Investigations into Forbidden Archaeology. So if I have those 4 books, do I have your whole collection? Except for the abridged version.
Well, you would need The Forbidden Archaeologist, which is the Atlantis Rising columns.
Oh, so that's been published as a book, all your former Atlantis Rising?
50 of them.
Oh, that's excellent. Okay, The Forbidden I didn't know. Okay, now I get it. The Forbidden Archaeologist.
Yeah, that's a title. And, you know, let's see, then there's My Science, My Religion.
All right. My Science, My Religion. Is this like a personal philosophical journey type book?
The introduction is sort of like that, but the text of the book is papers that I presented at scientific conferences. And given that I'm not a professional scientist, you know, I bring these things up. And it's kind of interesting for people, I think, to see how these things can be brought up without holding anything back at a conference. And and sometimes the papers even get published. And
that's an honor. That's an honor to be peer reviewed when technically by their definition, you're not a peer. You're not a peer. So to be peer reviewed is a hell of an honor. So I commend you for that.
Well, you know, sometimes, I mean, there are prominent archaeologists who have privately written to me that they say my work is very valuable for their discipline. Now, these particular individuals would not be able to say that publicly.
Right, exactly.
And I don't know what I'm going to do with that correspondence. Maybe after a certain number of years, I'll put it out. But, you know, yeah. So those are the books. You know, if you're able to get them from my website, that would be a big encouragement for the person who is running that aspect of things.
Yeah, I do the same thing. I sell books that I sign that come straight from our you know, we have a little operation where I'm selling books on a weekly basis. But for others who are impatient or whatever, they just order it off Amazon. So I see
Yeah.
you're doing the same thing. Do you have a website where people can order your books? I can add it to the it'll stay forever right here in the chat. Everybody will be able to see it in the chat.
mcremo.com.
mcremo.com. They can order the books.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
mcremo.com.
all the
books.
you know what? My moderators are already on it. They're already on it. As a matter of fact, they've already been posting the links to your books in the chat. Make sure you post mcremo.com so people will order books straight from is that also your website, forbiddenarcheology.com?
It is, but mcremo.com is the one to go for.
All right. So yeah, Pamela or whoever's on it, post the mcremo.com link so people can order books from there. I'll order those other two books from there.
Yeah. Yeah. If you do that, that would be helpful.
That'll work.
If you possibly can.
There it is. There's Forbidden Archaeology. I'm still looking for someone to post the mcremo.com link. They'll post it. My chat lasts for a while, even after the video's over.
Yeah.
Yeah, I started this YouTube stuff like 5.5, 6 years ago. I was really just a researcher. My publisher is in San Diego, Booktree, Paul Tice. He's published people like Zechariah Sitchin and Hugh Montgomery, who does a bunch of British antiquities, and also some guys like Neil Freer, who is a philosopher, really deep material on the history of the world, the God complex, breaking the God spell, talking about how toxic religion has been throughout history. Deeply philosophical stuff from Jack Barringer, Tracy Twyman. These are the type of people he published. He published Jordan Maxwell. So that's what. Yeah, he's in San Diego. I'm surprised you haven't been there. It's a real famous bookstore on Adams Avenue, the classical area, old San Diego. But that's my publisher, and we have a great relationship. Matter of fact, he's going to come on the channel. We're going to be talking about old times pretty soon and talking about books and projects we're working on. But he used to work personally for Zechariah Sitchin. He traveled the world with him. He was his videographer when he went to archaeological sites. And Zechariah Sitchin is not an archaeologist, but still he did visit many ancient sites. And my publisher was his cameraman during those excursions.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. There's the link, guys. Thank you, Mr. C. mcremo right there, www.mcremo.com. If you're interested in any of the books, he prefers that you order them through here and not Amazon. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. And hey, you know what? This has been the Forbidden Archaeologist and the Petulant Adversarial Chronologist. And I think that pretty much sums up our video today. And it's been a great chat. And I'm humbled that you visited my. I've mentioned you multiple times to my community over the last 6 years, and I'm humbled that you came on my channel and you talked to us. It's been great, and I'm glad you did because I have more books to order. So, if you got anything you would like to say to my community before we go, I would like to have you back in a couple of months if you want to.
Well, I would really welcome that opportunity, and I thank all the viewers and listeners for giving a little attention to these ideas, and just wish everybody well.
Yeah, man, that's what it's all about. We're all on the boat together. That's what it's all about. But yeah, man, this is a great chat, Michael. It was an awesome chat. And next time I'm in San Diego, I'll have Big John or I drop you an email, see if you want to go to lunch or something.
Okay.
Zip over to LA. I got a couple friends in LA I can go visit too. Let's see. Yeah, man. Thank you, Hardware. Michael Cremo and what does he say? Michael Cremo and Jason, what's the most fascinating find you can both agree upon or disagree? That's going to be our last little question for the day, but I'm going to say straight out of Forbidden Archaeology, in the appendix, there are these metal spheres, these metallic spheres with grooves that were found deep in like 500 million year old strata in Africa. Do you remember that, Michael?
Actually, what the book says and what the reports were is that the strata were 2.8 billion with a
2.8
B,
years old. Yeah. Yeah.
Precambrian.
Yeah. So these are definitely of human manufacture. They're spheres and they have grooves on them. Like maybe they were spun at high velocity. Maybe it was some engine part. Maybe it was a bolide, like a projectile. I don't know, but there's been a few of them found. And yeah, I can agree that that's definitely an anomaly. That would have been in a prior epic, prior to any other epic that we've created and destroyed and lived through. Because I'm a simulationist, and that means that I believe that we are souls living in a construct, living through multiple life sims on a journey for the development of the immortal soul. And I know other religions call it transmigration of souls. Some of them call it reincarnation. I am not going to split hairs. It's just that's my viewpoint.
Well, if you're interested in that, you're definitely going to like human devolution.
Okay, great. That'll work. All right, Michael. I am about to check out and hit this outro, and I will follow up with an email because I need your address because I think that you're going to really take enjoyment reading this book right here.
Okay, thank you for that.
I'm going to send that to you. I'll mail it to you as soon as I get your address, and I'll email you here after the video, or Big John will email you to get that address from you, and we'll invite you back to the channel. After I got a whole lot of guests lined up for the next 50 days. Sometime after that, I will definitely reach out and have you back on the channel, talk about some more stuff.
Okay, great.
All right, bye. Great guest. You guys know when I get antsy like that and I'm getting fidgety, it's because I've already drunk half a pot of coffee this late in the day. I also drank this entire deal of water, and it's about time for me to go take a trip. So I will talk to you guys later. Enjoyed the company, and I'm glad Michael Cremo is still doing his thing. That is fantastic. And I never would have imagined 5 years ago, 5.5 years ago, when I first mentioned him and Forbidden Archaeology and Richard Thompson and the different things that were in that book and other book researchers that we were talking about back then. I never would have imagined that one day he would be on the channel. So it's a little humbling, and it's great. It's just a great milestone that we had him to come over here and basically tell us about his work. But then again, you guys know too, I'm addicted to books. So I've got some more books to order, and I got another one on the way. But let me go ahead and find this beautiful outro. Talk to you guys later. Let's see here. As always, love you guys.